We are so glad that you have joined us for part 2 of how to lovingly handle EGRs. This is my friend Tiffany, and Tiffany, I invited her to be with me today because we lead a small group together with our husbands, but also Tiffany is a BSF leader. Tell me the title.
A substitute teaching leader of the Raleigh-Cary Evening Women's Class.
And so BSF just does an incredible job of training their leaders. And I knew that Tiffany was somebody that we would want to hear from about how to lead your small group and specifically what to do with EGRs. Now, if you didn't listen to last week, make sure that you go back to week 3 to listen to part 1. EGRs are our extra grace required people. Do you ever encounter those, Tiffany?
I am one.
I was about to say, I confessed that last week.
That's why we really get along.
Exactly. Tiffany and I would say we're a little too much for just about anybody.
Yeah, love us or hate us.
Exactly. So hope you guys love us.
Yes.
But anyway, so we are addressing 3 kinds of people. Last week I talked about the people in your group that talk too much, that they are people that kind of dominate the conversation when you're trying to allow space and room for everyone to speak. This week I'm going to interview Tiffany about how to handle the other 2 types. The person that overshares, or I would say is inappropriate, that makes the other people squirm. And then the person who doesn't talk enough, that won't open up at all. So let's just dive right in. Tiffany, how do you deal with those people who overshare or share inappropriately in the group?
Well, for any person in the group, I would say the most important thing you need to do is you need to pray before you even start your discussion group in the first place. If you know that you have problems that are occurring or reoccurring in your group, then please make sure that's something that you're praying about, because God will help you and God will shut their mouths. He can hold the reins on our tongues. I know this because He does this for me every single week. So that's the first thing, is pray.
Good.
And then for the women that talk about things that are private, not personal. We want people to talk personally, to relate God's word personally, but you don't want to share privately, so that if they were talking about someone who is perhaps a family member or a friend or even their pastor, we don't want them to in any way divulge information that person would be uncomfortable with them sharing. So if you wouldn't say it and they were sitting right there, then you probably shouldn't say it at all. And so that's a really important tip.
I love that. So you gave us 2 great tips there. Number 1, delineate between what's personal, which we want people to do, what has to do with you and your heart and your feelings and your emotions, and what's private, which often has to do with someone else. And then the test for that you can talk to your group about is, would you say it if that person was sitting there? That is excellent advice. So, but what if the line is already crossed, Tiffany? What if, so how do we as leaders maybe avoid having this happen or address it once it has happened?
I'd also, again, go back to prayer, because you don't want your heart to become annoyed. You don't want to be offended by the fact that this person is breaking the rules yet again, because we are just sinners by nature, and that's just what we're going to do. And so we want the grace to keep coming back to us, just like we are supposed to give to other people. So that's the first thing. Check your heart before you have a conversation. And then after that, I would say continue to remind the group, perhaps at the beginning of the discussion group, tell them that it is very important for us to share personally, but we want to be very careful about not sharing privately. So give them recurring reminders, gentle, sweet, but clear. Be very clear. People like me, you have to be really direct and clear. So do that, and then
we might need to hear it more than once.
Oh yes. And then chances are, if it's me, you probably or may have to say something to me privately. So you pray before you have that conversation. You pray that it happens in a natural way, so it won't be like she feels like she's being pulled into the principal's office. That this is just another friend coming alongside of another friend to help make sure that you're protecting and guiding her. So you do it in a loving way, and you just, perhaps there's something going on there, and so she just needs a little bit more attention. So she's oversharing likely because this is really weighing heavily on her heart. So give her a little extra love so that she won't feel like the environment with the discussion group is the place to offer that, but actually in a more private place, talking to perhaps you just as a friend.
Oh, that is really, really great advice. And it kind of goes back to what I talked about last week, that in that first class, the first time we meet, it's really important to kind of set the ground rules. And one of them is that we want to have every voice valued and heard. And so kind of police your own talking. And then this other one, it would be really valuable to talk about, there's personal sharing and there's private sharing, and we value personal sharing, but we want to avoid private sharing. And then you can just have those reminders.
Yes.
That's really, really good. Okay, so let's talk about our second person, the woman that won't open up at all, that really just sits in silence in the group. But we want to handle her gently and not put her on the spot, but we want to encourage her to share. So tell us some tips for that.
Again, that's another one that I pray for. When you notice that pattern of behavior, the first week you can understand that they might be kind of quiet because she doesn't know anyone else in the group. Maybe even 2 weeks she might be kind of quiet. But come the third week, then I would again cast that vision at the beginning of your discussion group, that you would really like to be able to hear from everybody, that you know that God has put them in that particular group for a reason, and that every single person has been taught something by the Holy Spirit, and that our group will be better if everyone will participate. So that will be the prompting, and should she not take that particular, that still isn't enough to coach her out, then I would also say that it is important for me to, now I know you said that you don't want to, I never want to embarrass anyone, and so one way that I like to draw them out is I might say something to her, but I say it in a very gentle way, like, what do you think about that, Amy? And then that she's likely thinking about something, and she just wanted to be invited into the conversation instead of having to jump in. Some people just aren't jumpers.
Yes.
We jump. You and me jump.
We won't shut up.
Yeah, we
actually.
Won't shut up. Yes.
So this is the problem.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I love that because last week I even mentioned that I think there are 2 reasons that women don't share. One is that they might just be introverts.
Yes. And
introverts are not people who are going to push their way into a conversation. And so if someone's not speaking, it might be that they're not even shy, but they're not going to push their way in. Right. So to say, hey, I'd love to hear what you think about that, especially on a question. I think you choose your questions carefully. If it's like an opinion question where everybody would have an opinion, not a shame them because they didn't do their homework kind of question.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I know that wouldn't be your heart, but just that you choose that question carefully. And then the other person is that they might be insecure, so introverted or insecure, and certainly for that insecure woman, she would probably be honored to be invited in.
That happened to me on Monday, actually. I was subbing in a group in our satellite class for our BSF class in Fuquay on Tuesday nights, and there was a lady that was there, and she was extremely soft-spoken. I mean, you really could barely hear her, but it was awesome that she shared. So I want to encourage her to share. So at the end of the night, I made a point to say directly to her, she was like the last person to leave the room, and I said directly to her, Amy, thank you so much for sharing tonight. It was wonderful to hear your voice. I hope that you will continue to share because we really value it. And just giving her that encouragement, I hope and pray, and again, continue to pray. I'm telling you, there's power in prayer. I'm learning it just over and over again. But pray that she will be encouraged by that, and that she'll desire to want to share with others what God is teaching her.
That is great, especially for the insecure woman who might not have, you never know, like what wounds people are carrying around, and no one may have ever said, we value what you have to say before. What an amazing healing, but also healing thing, but also an invitation to speak again. So I love that. One tip that I gave last week that I think rolls over into this week is sometimes in my small group, I will have women write down their answer first and then ask them to read it. And I think especially, well, for introverts and for insecure women, it gives them a moment to think and to formulate and to write something down. And then everybody in the room, whether you're an extrovert, an introvert, did your work, didn't do your work, is on level playing field with that question. And then that's the kind of time that you can call on people too. and feel free to call on people. So we thank you, Tiffany,
You're
so
welcome.
much. Those
You're
were really
welcome.
great tips.
That was
And one of the things, we talked through some of this ahead of time, but the thing that is really resonating with me is Tiffany's exhortation to us to pray, 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 pray.
Key.
You know, really one of the keys to being a great leader is not what you do in the room with your group, but what you do on your knees
Yes.
outside of that group. So thank you for making that point. So powerful. Thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments and I will drop in and try to help with that. So hope your groups are going great. We would love to hear about them in the comments today. Bye, sisters.
Bye.